The best comedians don't tell jokes. They tell the truth in a way that makes you laugh instead of cry. George Carlin saw America for what it truly was, a carefully crafted lie. A lie so powerful and complex, he dedicated much of his act trying to pull the wool from his fans' eyes.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice.
Despite George spending the better half of his career trying to warn the American people about the powers that be, nothing changed. Some argue it may have gotten worse. Today, many people believe that stand-up comedy is being overly controlled by political correctness, whereas others think that artists and performers should avoid sharing their political opinions and just stick to their craft. But everyone wanted to hear what George Carlin had to say regarding religion, race, war, prisons, the death penalty, climate change, human rights, abortion, sex work, feminism, toxic masculinity, PTSD, voter integrity, censorship, capitalism, communism, materialism, and imperialism. No matter how polarizing the subject was, George Carlin spoke his mind freely, and the people could not get enough of it. Now today you have people on both sides of the political spectrum analyzing his old material and insisting that they know his heart and mind enough to say, oh, he would definitely agree with me on this, when in reality, he likely would not agree with you. Or them.
Now there's one thing you might have noticed I don't complain about. Politicians. Everybody complains about politicians. Everybody says they suck. They come from American parents and American families. This is the best we can do, folks. Maybe it's not the politicians who suck. Maybe something else sucks around here. Like the public.
This video is going to be a roller coaster. Just when you think George Carlin is speaking for you and aligning with your moral compass, he will say something that you entirely disagree with. The good news is George Carlin does provide a solid solution for all of this chaos in the world. The bad news is you won't like it. So let's dive into some of the most iconic George Carlin material, starting off with something a little more lighthearted and agreeable. Stuff.
Have you noticed that their stuff is and your is stuff?
George Carlin's bit about stuff focuses on our obsession with material belongings. And while this may seem menial on the surface, our accumulation and attachment to our stuff has drastically changed modern civilization. Life for some people often revolves around managing all of our stuff and where to keep it.
Everybody's got to have a little place for their stuff. That's all life is about. That's the meaning of life. That's all your house is. It's a place to keep your stuff. If you didn't have so much goddamn stuff, you wouldn't need a house. That's all your house is. It's a place to keep your stuff while you go out and get more stuff. Sometimes you gotta move. You gotta get a bigger house. Why? Too much stuff.
Now obviously our homes provide us with shelter from storms and invasion, they help maintain a livable, consistent climate, and they provide a place for family and friends to gather. But homes have quickly turned into a glorified storage unit. Not to mention the storage unit industry generating $23 billion in annual revenue, which in and of itself is proof on how much we complicate our lives just by trying to manage all of our belongings.
Sometimes you go on vacation, you gotta bring some of your stuff with you. Can't take all your stuff. You gotta take a smaller version of your stuff. Get in a hotel room and you put away your stuff. That's the first thing you do in a hotel room is put away your stuff. Hey, we got more places than we got stuff. We're gonna have to buy more stuff.
Now obviously you should not let material things control your life. And when you are more selective with the things that you decide to indulge in, not only will you have less to manage, but you will appreciate those things even more. Because we can all agree that it's nice to have nice things. I for one appreciate expensive camera equipment, various options of sneakers, and of course...
Bro, you know what made me understand, like, being appreciative of materialistic things without, like, just, like, glorifying it? It made me look at it like, bro, as long as you got $1 in your pocket, you can buy anything you want in life. I mean, anything you want in life. As long as you got the money and ability to buy that. With that being said, if it's that easy to gain access to that, you shouldn't like be materialized by it. Cause nigga, that's something that could easily be bought. I mean, it could easily come and go. You can buy that 1,000 times and you probably still won't be appreciative of it. You probably gonna look at, especially if you got the money too, you're gonna look at it like, I can buy this 1,000 more times. Who really cares? Damn. I feel what he's saying though. I feel what he's saying. I do feel like having a house though, I don't think it's just to like fill a void for something else. I feel like having a house is probably, especially if you own that house, I feel like it's probably bigger than having a void for something else. If I'm not, I don't know.
First quality headphones. Plus, Black Friday is coming up and we all love getting a great deal. With the sponsor of today's video, Raycon, you get a great deal every day
So you
of
got
the
a
year.
Raycon deal?
They're doubling down on their amazing value and offering my viewers up to 30% off site-wide this Black Friday. Their latest model of the everyday earbuds include plenty of new features that make them a must-have. For example, they now feature a 32-hour battery life, active noise cancellation, and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once. These are the perfect everyday earbuds, whether you are just relaxing at home. They come in 9 minutes of charge. 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/PatrickCC. Censorship has been a particularly large talking point over the past few years, and Carlin's take on the subject over 50 years ago remains incredibly relevant today. In his most famous bit, Carlin addresses censorship with 7 words you can't say on television.
I mean, there are a lot of words you can say whenever you want, you know. Pneumonia! Nobody gives you a lot of... All right, you can't yell it in the hospital a great deal, but what the hell? There are words that you can say, no problem. Topography! No one has ever gone to jail for screaming topography. But there are some words that you can go to jail for. There are some words that we just have decided we will not say all the time.
Carlin then expresses that he wishes there was a universally agreed upon list of words that are prohibited.
Because nobody gives you a list. That's the problem.
I'm for sure going to sleep
They don't
after this
give you a list. Wouldn't you think it'd be normal if they didn't want you to say something to tell you what it is? Yeah. Nobody even tells you when you're a kid what the words are that you're supposed to avoid. You have to say them to find out which ones they are. That's 2. Oh, ma, that's enough trial and error, huh?
Although the bit starts out more facetious, he then gets a little more serious when discussing the hypocrisy of our culture. Specifically on television, where sometimes we're allowed to say certain words, and then sometimes those same words are considered inappropriate.
There are a lot of these little two-way, double-entendre words. I call them like part-time filth. You have words like ass. Ass is hardly even a dirty word anymore, but it has a few meanings that you can't say on television. What can you say on television? That's another one of those places where we can't use these words all the time. But some of them are all right some of the time. You can say on television things like, well, you've made a perfect ass of yourself tonight. But you can't say, hey, let's go get some ass.
Carlin's quest for discovering these prohibited words ended on a very specific list of 7.
Well, we have more ways to describe dirty words than we actually have dirty words. They call them bad words, dirty, filthy, foul, vile, vulgar, cursing, cussing, swearing, and all I could think of was suck a motherfucker.
The ironic thing is, I still can't say these words on YouTube today, nor can I just let a clip of George Carlin saying them.
It is true. You
But the
can't say
reason why
certain stuff
I
on
can't say them today and why George couldn't say them then is slightly different. The reason why George couldn't say the words was because he had to abide by the laws of the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC. The FCC regulates interstate and international communications by radio, television, wire, satellite, and cable in all 50 states. The FCC defines and prohibits obscene, indecent, and profane content, which they say is not protected by the First Amendment. Profane content includes grossly offensive language that is considered a public nuisance. The FCC's strict rules is what inspired George's bit in the first place. It also got him arrested for performing it. In July of 1972, George Carlin was on stage at Summerfest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, opening for musician Arlo Guthrie. George was warned prior to him going on stage that if he performed his 7 words you can't say, he would be arrested. And in true George Carlin fashion, he performed it anyway. When he walked off stage, a local police lieutenant was waiting to arrest him for using profane language. Fortunately, after his arrest, the charges were dropped as he was protected by his first constitutional amendment right.
I think children need to hear those words the most because as yet they don't have that habits. It's adults who are locked into certain, thought patterns. So as I say, the idea of the material is to show the 7 words you can't say on television. Out of 400,000 words in the English language, there are 7 that right now I can't say to you that you couldn't run on the air, and yet they're merely words. And so I use them in explaining that and in making fun of that ironic situation.
Chat, y'all ain't see
and,
that.
So I find
Chat, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. If y'all see me falling asleep, like I said in the other videos, I know you hear it in my voice. I'm sick, bro. So, like, if I'm falling asleep, it ain't me, bro. It's not me. It's not me. Chill, chat. Chill. I'm sorry. I am about to go to sleep after this. I know.
The hassle for using them when my intention is to free us from asking people for using them.
But George's material would actually be the center of some litigation that got all the way up to the Supreme Court. In October of 1973, George would release his 5th album titled Occupation Fool. On that album was another very similar joke titled Filthy Words. Since George was a renowned comedian, comedy radio jockeys were excited to play his new material for their listeners. Well, on October 30th, 1973, East Coast station WBAI-FM warned their listeners that they were about to play Carlin's material that was potentially offensive. CBS executive John Douglas listened to the broadcast alongside his 15-year-old son as they drove home. Appalled, he filed a complaint with the FCC a few weeks later over the language aired in the middle of the day. In February 1975, the FCC issued a declaratory order that determined the broadcast to be indecent and threatened to impose sanctions on the Pacifica Foundation, who owned the radio station, over any subsequent complaints. Pacifica challenged this finding in court, and in 1977, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit ruled in favor of the broadcast entity by a 2-to-1 margin, sending the case all the way up to the Supreme Court. And surprise, surprise, the feds won in Supreme Court. But the FCC has almost no impact.
I'm gonna finish this later.